it's a great opportunity and a great blessing to be able to play behind those two guys, two gold jackets soon to be. And, I couldn't ask for anything.
I don't think the game's over.
Welcome into Triple Zeros, the anti-hot take sports show. I'm your host, Josh Buckhall. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at JoshGBuck. Hit up the Facebook page, Clocker Sports, website, clockersports.com. Email address, clockersports@gmail.com. And of course, you can always follow the pod at 30spod on Facebook and Twitter as well. And on Instagram. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the number 30spod, at the number 30spod. That voice you just heard was one Trevis Gibson, edge rusher for the Chicago Bears, second-year edge rusher for the Chicago Bears, following his big game last Sunday against the New York Giants, where he had 2 strip sacks on Mike Glennon, quarterback for the New York Giants. And, and really what was a historic game. We'll talk about that in a second, though. It was historic on many levels. But we'll talk about that in a second. Right now, we got some football stuff going on right now today, so let's get right to it. The Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the Denver Broncos in a game that has seen Drew Lock rush for 2 touchdowns, and the Kansas City Chiefs struggle to get on the same page. It's something that we've seen from them all season. So, coming in, they were heavily favored. I don't think that anybody's too concerned right now. It's 14-10. That's not, the worst of outcomes at halftime, but you definitely don't see the same kind of aggression from the Chiefs. You didn't see the same kind of aggression from the Chiefs going to the half, and you also don't see a lot of just the connection, really, from either side. And so I think that's where the biggest issue and the worry comes in, is that they're just not on the same page if they're, if you're looking at what the Chiefs are doing. And then on the Broncos side of things, Denver, Drew Lock has been under a lot of scrutiny ever since he entered the league, and I think that a lot of it has been unwarranted. At the same time, maybe he's not that guy. I will say that between he and Vic Fangio, somebody has to have been getting the raw end of the deal, or somebody above them has made a mistake and is not getting the blame they probably should be. That's a whole other separate conversation, because I think right now it's pretty clear that they're going to be trying to find another quarterback. It's pretty clear they're going to be going to another head coach, because reports are that Vic Fangio will be out after this week. If so, he's going out with a hell of a show. Like I said, doing what they're doing to the Chiefs right now. And 16-14 now, the Chiefs did just get a touchdown. So, I'm not really sure what to expect going forward from Kansas City. And I'll get to my confidence level of the rest of the division winners shortly. But, this has to be a little bit concerning for a team that should be, ready. It's fighting for the top seed, going up against a team that's getting prepared for another overhaul, another facelift at the very least. And you're, 17-14. We were 14-10. Now, again, like I said, nobody's pressing the panic meter, and that's why they're pulling back up now. But I just think that there's going to be some level of concern with them going into the playoffs as they play, good teams. That might come into a bit of play here down the stretch. Now, we also have later on today the Cowboys taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. Dallas has really not looked like themselves. They got a win last week, but it just hasn't looked right. And I think that most people kind of feel now that Dallas is one of those paper tigers as well, that they'll make it to the playoffs, and maybe they even find a way to steal a win. But I don't know if anybody has a lot of supreme confidence in an 11-5 team. Okay, an 11-5 team. Being able to make a lot of noise. Come off a loss against the Arizona Cardinals. I forgot about it. There were 4 wins prior to that. That was a loss that snapped that win streak. I'm just not sure that with Dallas you're going to be – everyone wants to say it's Dak from week to week. But I also feel like a lot of their play calling has left it predictable in matters when it matters most. There's not a lot of variation within the game. There's a lot of variation from game to game, but within the game, it's not as much. And then the running game, I'm not sure if they're using both of those backs the proper way. Now, I won't say that I follow Dallas as closely as Bears, Bulls, and Hawks, but I will tell you that I know that, there is some balance issues with how they approach things. And now some of that is on Dak as well. Like some of the way that he plays, he has been prone to be a check down captain at times from time to time, but he's also been a guy who's led comeback drives and a guy who has overcome a lot in game to lead his team back. So it's on deck. It's also on the pieces around him, and that includes the coaches on the sidelines. Philadelphia, though, we did a lot of talking about Nick Sirianni when he did that rambling, talking about planting the seeds, and kind of compared that to Brandon Staley, who kind of talks in this kind of, I don't know, elevated sense that maybe is above and beyond. But at any rate, Nick Sirianni has his team buying in. Whatever we may think about how he was saying, and like I said at the time, I got what he was trying to get at. It just came out kind of funny. But his team fully buys in. And if you know one thing about it, the funny thing about this whole situation is that Jalen Hurts is the same way. If you recall, when he first was in the beginning of the year and he wasn't doing too hot, everybody was questioning, what do you do? We're going to look at the game film. And he said, you don't take a deuce and look at it, you flush it. So these two are like a match made in heaven in terms of just getting some quotables and just saying some wild stuff. Like, can you imagine what those meetings are like on the sideline? I need to know, like, what's the best analogy, comparison, simile, whatever the hell the proper term for this metaphor, whatever it is, right? I need to know what the best one between those two is, because I'm sure they're just throwing them back and forth. It's just probably all types of sayings back and forth. No actual words, no actual sentences outside of cryptic messages. They get it. It works perfectly. They're a run-heavy team. Hurts thrives in that situation, getting a lot of play action and things of that nature. They have talent. This is a team that, is going in the right direction. They're not there yet, but they're definitely going in the right direction. And I think that that's something that a lot of teams around the NFL definitely cannot say. So, a good game I'm looking forward to later on. Again, I'm not worried about this Chiefs game. I wasn't worried in the first place. Nice story for Denver to go 14 and 10 in the first half. Kansas City taking that lead is probably a good sign. Now, I will say I was surprised at the beginning of this game to hear them talk about Kansas City's tough defense to face. And I was like, wow, you don't really hear that too often. Again, follow me on Twitter at Josh G. Buck. But here we are. Philly and Dallas, though, fighting for that. Dallas is in the playoffs. Philly's trying to do what they got to do. I don't know how much longer that's going to be Dallas's division. Let me put it that way. I think that right now it's Dallas's division, but if they don't figure out how to get a proper balance on offense and what to do with all that skill talent that they got, Gallup hasn't played, is CeeDee Lamb, Martin Cooper, you got 3 receivers and you still can't get things cracking. The tight end has been in and out, whatever the case may be. When they get that sorted out, is that going to be enough to get Philly fend off Philly rather, as they get more comfortable in themselves and what they like to do? Because all that's going to happen is Hurts is going to get more and more comfortable going forward, and they're going to be able to open up the passing game a lot more. So Dallas better be on the lookout. Washington's not going to go away. The Giants seem to be happy to be stuck where they're at, keeping Joe Judge around. I don't know what the hell that's all about. That's a weird situation. I don't know. Yes, I do, but whatever. It hasn't been that long for them to try to bail on him, but reports are they're keeping Daniel Jones too, and I just don't know how both survive. Somebody has to go, right? You would think somebody has to go, and I'm not saying change for the sake of change, but Jones, his fumbling issues are still there. Judge has a personality that seems like it's going to wear itself out before anything substantial happens, and whatever, man. You just kind of got to sit there and watch. The Eagles currently in the seventh seed right now, getting that last wild card spot in the NFC. So you have Packers, Rams, Buccaneers, Cowboys, and then you have the Cardinals and the Eagles sitting there. You can still have the 49ers in the hunt, and then the Saints somehow still alive in the playoff chase. On the AFC side, you have the Titans, Chiefs, Bengals, and Titans, Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills as the division leader, and then you have the Patriots as the only one that's clinched a playoff spot. They still have a chance to overtake the Bills for the final spot if the Bills somehow find a way to lose at the Jets. Don't see that happening, but if they do, that'll be what happens. In the hunt still there in the AFC, you have the Colts and you have the Chargers with the Raiders on the bubble and the Steelers and the Ravens there as well. Now, that Raiders mention leads me to my next story, or what I want to talk about next. Rich Bisaccia taking over a Raiders team that was supposed to come in with John Gruden at the helm. Gruden bows out amid salacious allegations. Is it salacious? Is that so salacious? Whatever. Allegations of racism and other things, other isms and other idnies and all that kind of stuff. What's the word? When you get whatever. Moving on. He gone. And so Bisaccia stepped in, special teams coordinator, and has led this team to, like I said, the brink of the playoffs. And I just don't know, that he's going to get the proper opportunity to vie for this job that he really deserves. I think that it'd be easy to say, and it is easy to say, and it's probably accurate, that in Las Vegas you need a personality, you need a big name to justify going after a certain person, right? To put them at the helm of your team. You need a billboard, I heard it described as. That's true. But you also need a winning football team in the NFL. And so I think this may come down to a priorities thing. Now, I will say, rumors are they could have their chance at both if they are able to secure Jim Harbaugh from Michigan. There is connection between he and Al Davis. He started his coaching career with the Raiders. But then there's also a matter of another team that we'll talk about a little bit later in the Chicago Bears. That being said, I still stand on Bisaccia getting this team to the playoffs, despite all the stuff that they've gone through, all that's happening around them, right? Losing your coach like that, that's pretty tough. To be where they are now, I don't know how he doesn't get serious consideration for that job. We've often heard that special teams coordinators should get a lot more consideration for these openings because of their knowledge of the entire roster due to who's in and out of special teams over the years. Heard it with Dave Tobe, and now Bisaccia. If nobody else is saying it, I'm saying it because I think that, this is something to again, this is a Raiders team that we've seen fold down the stretch in recent years. He's got them pushing further. And I think that's something that you can't sneeze at. And I really think it's a shame that it just doesn't sound like he's going to get a fair shake at getting that position. So that's tough to see. You hope that he does find a way to at least get a chance somewhere, get an interview somewhere, but doesn't sound like it. The big story this week, though, that was just my personal one that I just kind of felt I had to get off my chest because it just bothered me. Antonio Brown, infamously at this point, walked off the field during the game with the New York Jets. As he puts it, he was cut. Or after, rather, he was cut. According to his head coach, he was not cut. He did not discuss the ankle injury that Brown has now had his lawyer produce a statement regarding, saying that the staff has mishandled his entire injury, and it's getting really sloppy, and it's so sloppy because now you have an Instagram model. By the way, let me just say the Instagram model that this is about is famous because she licked the toilet. Okay, that was her viral trend. That's how she got on, licking the toilet. All right, so how is she connected to all this? Well, rumor has that before his big blow up and storm out, Antonio Brown snuck this young lady into his hotel room for extracurriculars. Now, whatever. I feel like that part coming out, and now, in and of itself, I wouldn't care. And I probably think that nobody else would care either. But the young lady is now claiming that she's positive for COVID, so they need to test the team. You know how this goes with the fan thing, so this is going to be public for a long time. I will say this. That's probably the least bit of their worries, right? They had, they let him pass with the Vax card. They waited till the 11th hour to actually release him. And we all know that's because of Tom Brady. And I think that some of it might have come because of Antonio Brown. I gotta have the times on this because I might have these dates or the timeline mixed up here. But Antonio Brown went on Complex, one of the Complex podcasts, and questioned Tom Brady's friendship to him. And now he was very lucid in saying he's only my friend because I'm good at football. Yeah. A lot of people are nice and work mostly because they can get along with the person, but they mostly get along with people in the first place at work because they do their job well. I don't know two people who get along with people who don't do their job well. So let's just, get that surprise. Wow, he don't like you because you're good at your job. Holy crap. But then he goes on to say, how come Rob Gronkowski is making so much more money than me? And I almost fell out of my chair when I heard it. And that's not to say that AB hasn't had a great career, but A, that's not Tom's responsibility to negotiate your money. B, Tom and Rob have, made history together. And I'm not saying that, what AB and Brady were doing in winning the Super Bowl, whatever, that's not special because that's what he wanted to say. They all make it seem like he won the Super Bowl by himself, but he don't do it by himself, but y'all gonna make it seem like he's some kind of superhuman or something like that. Along those lines is what Brown said. But Gronk and Brady helped Gronk become the greatest tight end in history, arguably, right? And vice versa. He was a big part of Brady becoming who he is as a quarterback too, right? I think they might have a little bit more history than what AB had with his cup of coffee in New England. And then, bottom line, this is a guy who vouch for you to get in to get into Tampa. I'm sorry, to get into New England after you blew up in Vegas, in Oakland still. I believe it's still in Oakland. With the Raiders, rather. Let's just put it that way. After you'd already blown up with the Steelers, right? Got you to New England, one of the strictest places on the planet, right? One of the most buttoned-up organizations in sports. Then, after that didn't work, got you down to Tampa to help you get a Super Bowl, your first Super Bowl. I'm not saying that he did it on his own. I'm saying that he was a large reason why, because you wasn't winning it with Jameis. Just gonna tell you. Say that right here now. As a Jameis fan, you're not winning that with Jameis, AB. Then, right, you went out and did the fake vax stuff and all of it, and you were still. Why do you think you were still on the team after the vaccination thing? This is such a bizarre case, and I want to say that, I want to believe him with this injury thing. Like, dang, they might have actually messed him over with the injury. We'll see. But everything around that casts so much doubt that all I can say is SMH and wait and see. Like, this is a wild saga, and honestly, I think that's probably what most people expected. Maybe not this exact pattern, but or not this exact play out, but this pattern nonetheless. So, back to Harbaugh. Is it? You know what? No, we're gonna come back to Harbaugh later. Skip Harbaugh. Going on to the Bengals. Do the Bengals run the AFC North? They are right now sitting atop of the division at 10-6. The Pittsburgh Steelers are at 8-7-1. So the Bengals will win the division this season, and they're coming off of a big win over the Kansas City Chiefs, 34-31 last week, in which Joe Burrow was just slanging that thing. Jamar Chase had another good game as well. Is it going to be theirs for a while? And I would say yes, once they figure out, I think, how to get their defense shored up. I think that there are some holes there still, but slight progression on defense will be enough as long as Joe Burrow keeps going the way that he's going. I think we saw it when he was in LSU, but to see it play out with Cincinnati is something that's pretty cool too. I think it's always nice to see draft picks hit their look to be on track to hit their ceiling, right? And I think you're seeing that now with Burrow. As for the rest of the division, though, man, I like Lamar, and I like what Baltimore's doing, I'm really a big fan of Greg Roman. You got to see more out of everybody in that situation. They're at risk of not even, hitting the postseason, if I'm not mistaken. So what are we, there's nothing to rest of your laurels on here. They're a good running team. Injuries decimated their offensive line, secondary, and their backfield. So you can't fully judge them on this year, but you want to see more. You want to see more progression from Lamar as a passer, although I've seen a lot. I've seen more than people want to give him credit for. But there's more to be done. That's just the way it is. Cleveland is on its way from a divorce with Baker Mayfield, who seemed to be resting himself, getting surgery to protect himself for the future. He's going the way of Mitch Trubisky, where they're kind of divorcing, but not really divorcing, because they might need to bounce back to each other next year. We'll see how that all plays out. And then Pittsburgh, Big Ben was doing his goodbyes last Monday night. So, it's probably a wrap for him in Pittsburgh. More than likely, it should be for Pittsburgh's sake, right? And so, when you look at it, all you have is Baltimore that's really challenging them right now, unless the Browns swing a deal for an established veteran. And with that roster, maybe they can get something done with that. But for now, who they? Is it who they or who that? Who that is the Saints. Who they is the Bengals. One of those two. Who something. You get what I'm getting at with this one. It's the Bengals division right now, man. I just don't see anything that's going to disrupt them. Back in the NFC, is it too easy? Has it been too easy for the Green Bay Packers? Have they had too easy of a road? A lot of people are pointing out that the NFC's number one seed has had one of these softer schedules. They play in one of the softer divisions in the NFL and have really struggled when they've been faced with top competition throughout most of the year. To that, I will say you can only play what's on your schedule, right? They're playing very well, so you never need to apologize for beating who they put in front of you, however handily. It is the NFL after all. And then I will also say that every champion has had some luck along the way. people will readily acknowledge how a struggling team can get into the playoffs and get hot. Why can't a team that's hot get into the playoffs and struggle? Well, why can't that team get into the playoffs and show you that what they were in the regular season really was what they are? Right? The same thing happens there. Now, the Packers do have some defensive questions. Offensive line is young and inexperienced, and there's going to be a defensive coordinator who's not afraid of Aaron Rodgers. I haven't met him yet, but I assume somebody in the playoffs will feel up to the task and they'll throw their best at him. We know that they've struggled when they got to that point. That's why they've only gotten the one Super Bowl berth and win out of Rodgers and his tenure there. But I don't buy this. It's too easy. They had I get it. You're gonna have to prove it. But this isn't even the typical too easy thing, because we've seen them be good. Like, it's not like Rodgers is a bum, right? Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, arguably to some the best. Whatever. There's no way that I can sit here and confidently say, as a person who's watched him pull magic out of his ass for what is it now? 17 years, right? 15 years, something like that. What else am I supposed to think? Then he's going to come out and do what he's got to do. So, I guess not that long because he sat for the first 3 years. Anyway, at any rate, he's been doing it for a while against better teams than he'll probably face in the playoffs. And I know people's trepidation with backing them, but until they get to that point, I can't see any reason to be worried. And at the same token, though, for all the talk of his MVP, and he had that big blow up with Hub Arkenshot here in Chicago, which Hub, made some claims about why he wouldn't vote for Aaron Rodgers for MVP based on some personal feelings, which is very, very much against like the rules. You just don't do it. Like, that's just it's very unbecoming, right, of a writer to throw your personal feelings that way and say that you're going to deny somebody who's so clearly deserving of the award because you just don't feel like they've been a good guy due to Rodgers lying about his COVID status and trying to mislead people. You can feel that type of way about that and still say he's been kicking ass on the field, because he has. That's just that both things can be true at the same time. They are not mutually exclusive. That being said, I just don't know there's not many quarterbacks that are going to be better than him in the playoffs. We'll see when we get there. And for him, like I said, with the MVP talk though, at this point, it's got to be a bigger picture. He's got to be more worried about getting that second Super Bowl win, at least a berth, than he does about winning MVP. But we'll see how it all plays out, because that's just the way it goes, because nobody's ever fully satisfied with anything. Rumors have it that the Carolina Panthers are open to moving Christian McCaffrey and will also be retaining Matt Rule. They got it right on the first part, although it's too late because you already paid him and he already started getting hurt. But they're totally whiffing on the second part. Listen, I like Matt Rule when he came in, but running through these quarterbacks and running through these offensive coordinators, you fired Joe Brady. There's no way I can come away from this without feeling like this is at least somewhat your fault if you're Matt Rule. And I've seen it. I've seen it happen here in Chicago with Matt Nagy, where you keep blaming others and it looks like it's going to happen again. We'll talk about that in a second. But eventually the buck stops with you. And, sir, the buck stops with you because Matt Rule is supposed to bring the offense. That ain't happened. Their defense has been well. Defense has played well. That offense, though, got to get it figured out. I don't understand the logic in keeping Rule. Well, no, yes, I do. Yes, I do. He's not very far into his contract, so I get that part. It's but he's running out of excuses. Let me put it that way. He's definitely running out of people to blame. Moving of CMC is hilarious because, like I said, they would have had a better chance doing that before they paid him all that money, because I think anybody would have seen that when you rely on a running back that much, they're going to get hurt. It's not even a matter of their durability being high or low. He's going to get hurt. They use him for everything. And so you're seeing the results of that. We saw it with Larry Johnson. We've seen it with Jamal Lewis. We've seen it with Arian Foster, and so on and so forth. And now you're seeing it with Christian McCaffrey. Who else? Who was the other? Saquon Barkley, who hasn't even been used that much because he can't stay on the field. It's rough, but it just seems like Carolina is doing things a little bit ass backwards, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take them to figure it out. But I get why they keep Rule, because he's not that far in. But the signs so far have been very concerning, because not only is he blaming them by firing them, but he's publicly blaming them in conferences in not so many words. That to me is a major red flag. You've been seeing a red flag game on social media, right? Yeah, this is a major red flag with Matt Rule. The fact that they just keep running through coordinators, quarterbacks, and he keeps publicly admitting or passing the buck. That's a problem. That's a problem. If one thing I can say about Matt Nagy and them, they'll always take responsibility. Maybe it's because they know there's no axe coming down from the top, but they took responsibility for the flaws in the many flaws in this team over the past few years. You can't deny that. So that does bring us back to the Bears and Harbaugh first. We'll talk about the Bears first because I want to talk nice. Let's say some good things. This past couple of weeks, last two hub games, I was able to attend the Bears games as a member of the press and got to talk to several players and head coach Matt Nagy, who might be on the way out here. We'll see what ends up happening there. But the first one, I got a couple clips that I would like to share. The first clip that I'm sharing is talking with Matt Nagy and then Justin Fields. This was following their loss to the Minnesota Vikings in week 15, week 16? Week 16. Because week 15, then 16 was Seattle, 17 was Minnesota, 17 was the Giants, and then 18 was Minnesota. So yes, this is week 15, following the loss to the Minnesota Vikings, Matt Nagy and Justin Fields.
How do you keep Justin motivated in games like this, and what kind of things are you looking for as positive signs of his progression?
Well, number one, Justin always stays positive. As hard as it can be sometimes to want to stay positive in these moments, I think he is learning through these times that him personally, the plays where he can get better, but the plays he does well too. This is going to be something for him, not just right now. Like it feels, he's had these games he's starting and playing, but this is going to be something that's going to continue with him next year and the year after. And then when he gets to that third and fourth year, that's when you're going to really start. It's going to be like, okay, this game's super slow, but it takes a little bit of time. So he understands that. He knows that. And every rookie in this sport wants it to happen overnight, and it takes time. So Justin's built the right way, and he's going to be really, really good.
Do you ever feel like you start to press a little bit as the game goes on when things aren't clicking like they were tonight? Like you start off the phone, but you kind of settle down, and then maybe at the end, a little bit early, you feel like that happens at the end of games?
Nah, we actually tend not to do that. So, it's happened so many times, situations where you're down and players begin to press, but, you can't press. You can't play like you're down because you're not going to, get 14 points back in one drive. So you just got to play each play and make, each play a positive play. And, yeah.
Here is Travis Gibson talking about learning behind Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack as a second-year player, biding his time, and then also after that you'll have Matt Nagy talking about Darnell Mooney, followed by Darnell Mooney talking about himself. Let's get to it.
Can you talk about being behind Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn and then getting your chance and performing like you had today?
It's a great opportunity and a great blessing to be able to play behind those two guys, two gold jackets soon to be, and I couldn't ask for anything else. A lot of guys, I want to play, I want to do this, and that, but I'm literally behind two pass rushers that probably top 5 in the league. And, it's technique, film. I get to watch their steps every day, from sun up to sundown. So I'm in a great position, and, I honestly couldn't be more appreciative.
Can you speak on Darnell Mooney's development this season into a reliable target? He had another good game today. He's really had a connection with every quarterback that's been in the game.
Yeah, well, he's just consistent with who he is. Getting him in the 5th round and him developing into the player he is, this kid is going to be a special wide receiver in this league for a super long time. His care factor is off the charts. He's learning every day. He's one of those guys after practice, getting jugs every day, running routes every day, and working with the quarterbacks every day. That's just naturally what happens when you do that stuff. That's a pretty cool thing, and that's not going to stop with him because he's rare.
Matt cited your work ethic for your development this season and your ability to be able to connect with all the quarterbacks. Speak on that from your perspective and how you think it's been able to develop this year.
Having a relationship with all of them, not even just much on the field wise. I mean, we talk a lot about just football anyways or life. So I'm always asking questions with everybody. So, I have a good relationship with everybody in the locker room and all 3 quarterbacks. And, like I said a couple of days ago about just being able to have chemistry with those guys, I'm probably one of the people that were playing in the game last week because of COVID related that I had a good relationship with all 3 quarterbacks. So.
So there you heard Trevor Gibson talking about learning behind Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, and then Matt Nagy speaking on Darnell Mooney, and Mooney speaking on himself. And honestly, Trevor Gibson's answer was my favorite. I had kind of figured that that's what they were going to say about Mooney, because you kind of just seen it play out throughout the year. And I like the part about him saying that that Mooney's going to be he's special. I like that. You know, he's a different kind of guy. That's good stuff because the Bears need playmakers going forward. Big stuff. Gibson's development as a potential playmaker, though, I think has been a surprise because he was inactive a lot beginning of the year and last season. And so to see him kind of come on here late is a great step. And to hear that perspective from him, you know, a lot of young guys come in and they want to play right away. You know, sure, he wants to play, but he understands who he's behind and what he can take from this situation. And so I just really love that answer. And honestly, it was a treat to be able to see history being made with Robert Quinn. And honestly, he's one of the humblest people that you will ever see, because post-game, I would say that Andy Dalton and Matt Nagy talked more about Robert Quinn than Robert Quinn talked about Robert Quinn. And that's, you know, what they said, what they expected from him. So that being said, though, we got to talk about what happened this week with the Bears in the news. And it's been reported by Brad Biggs of the Chicago Tribune that Ryan Pace will be retained even though Matt Nagy will move on. Now, at first blush, you're like, oh my God, how can they keep this dude? He's messed up. He keeps on messing up. He's missed on quarterback multiple times. We don't know what's going to happen with Justin Fields ultimately. Missed on multiple head coaches. Now this will be his second head coach. You let him try for a third. Not only that, though, they're also saying that Pace could get a promotion. Now, here's where people's heads start spinning, and with good cause, because nothing this organization has done has ever signaled being a good move when they start trying to do stuff. So whatever they say, it's bad, especially when it began with, we're probably going to keep Ryan Pace. Whoa. This needs an entire... People are wanting them to change out the president in Ted Phillips. They're talking about maybe elevating Ryan Pace to that role. So, while I agree, I also disagree. It's a really tricky situation. I wrote for that last word on Pro Football this week. Check out the article. It's up. They're all on clockersports.com. Everything that I write is going to be on clockersports.com. It's right there at the top. You can find last word. You can find Pippen Ain't Easy, and you can find Throwing Down South. So, for last word this week, I wrote how... Ryan Pace has gotten by largely by being absent, not being visible, not being in the public eye. He's in a handful of appearances, less than a handful of appearances every year, controlled environments. And it wasn't always that way. I'm not sure where it turned, but it wasn't always that way. If you go back to the beginning of his tenure, he was speaking monthly. You could find quotes from him monthly on different topics, from head coaches to player evaluations to what they're trying to do. Something changed. He got entrenched. Now he's surviving because no one can really attach blame to him. They sat there last year and preached collaboration. He and Matt Nagy and Ted Phillips, and they're going to collaborate. And this year, it sounds as though Matt Nagy is going to be the one to get bus tossed. And what's so funny about that to me is that listening to the interviews of players, right, and their responses, now it could just be media speak. But to a man, they've all commended Matt Nagy as a person. As a person. Rarely do you hear them compliment the football side, but that's neither here nor there. I bring that up to say, I'm not sure if you would hear that same thing about Pace. But not necessarily because they don't like him, more so they don't know him. And as I wrote in the article, that should be a good thing, right? It keeps the GM from being attached, keeps players from I guess, them from being attached as well. I don't know if that's a good thing for players, but for the organization, it should be a healthy thing. Except in Pace's case, we've seen him overvalue prospects. We've seen him undervalue draft capital, salary cap. We've seen him overpay and miss out on several people in free agency. Right? His method of fixing a position has often been tripling down on it in free agency, in the draft, and then cuts. What are they going to do for head coach? You're going to sign a coach, trade for a coach, and you're going to go and find a coach who gets fired, coming in on some stuff? Like, what's the plan with head coach? You're going to do the same thing there? So, the other side of that coin, though, is if you like Justin Fields, right? You saw Robert Quinn make history without Khalil Mack opposite him for much of the season. You know the secondary needs some work, but you got at least your number 2 corner in Jalen Johnson. Eddie Jackson proved to be a little bit more useful in the nickel position than he did at safety, which could be a thing because we've seen a lot of secondary players have to move into that nickel, more of an aggressive nickel, a freelancer, as it were, than a true nickel back. But he likes that. right? And it was working for him. That's a positive for a guy who was an overpaid safety. Maybe he could be a slightly less overpaid nickelback, right? I don't know. Nickels don't really get paid that much anymore. I don't know. Do they get paid as much as safety? I got to check the numbers on that. Whatever. At any rate, if he's going to be good at it and start making plays again, it'll all be worth it. You have some offensive linemen that have some shown potential at various times. Like I just talked about, you got Darnell Mooney, right? David Montgomery just hit 1,000 yards for the third time. Third time total? 1,000 yards? I think he hit third time. At least for the second year in a row, I know he's got 1,000 yards from scrimmage for his career. You're going to need some help. Cole Kmet, overdrafted, but he's useful for what he is. There are some pieces here. So, and when Pace got here, there wasn't no pieces here. If you remember, when Pace got here, there was nothing. There was little. So, in that sense, I can see them saying, "All right, you are all right at identifying talent." Because again, even guys that he's drafted, the fails. Leonard Floyd went to LA and played well, right? Mitch Trubisky came here and torched the Bears' ass up in preseason, right? They've seen guys go elsewhere and thrive. Brandon Staley was a coach that was here. He left. Look what they're doing this year. If you lay it all out on the table, it's not hard to see. On top of the absence thing, it's not hard to see how Ryan Pace said, "Look, man, I know we said we were going to collaborate, but he didn't hold up his end of the bargain." Right? It's tough. It's tough. So that's why when people say, "Oh man, they're going to have a hard time getting rid of people," it depends. Where are you putting him and what kind of control are you giving him? Because if you're giving him that title of football czar, but really his day-to-day is just identifying players that might be of use, figuring out how to work the contracts, right? Figuring out what team needs what and where the Bears could use that to their advantage. You could still bring in a guy like Harbaugh and give him full control of the roster, final say over what happens. You can still do that. And to be fair, I'm not sure if Pace is a guy who's going to push back on that because there have also been reports that he is confrontation averse. Now, that could keep them from bringing in Harbaugh in the first place, but as people who have clearly shown that they don't want to take any of the heat, you get a front-facing guy like Harbaugh who has shown he could take all the nails and daggers, all the slings and arrows that can be thrown at him. I'm not sure that this is as bad a position for head coach as people want to make it out to be. And people are right to be skeptical of it because they can still bungle it by saying that Pace will still have final control. There are so many factors that could throw this off. But I don't think necessarily that it is going to be because Pace is retained. We'll have to see how they play it. But I just don't. I think that might be a little bit overblown. Just a little bit. Just a smidge. Just a smidge. And finally, I haven't been doing picks because I just haven't been able to keep track with it. I haven't been keeping tally of what I've been saying. So I didn't want to send everybody off and just keep saying random things and be wrong here. But we can go through and talk about the division winners and who my level of trust in all of them. So starting off in the AFC, the Titans. They're 11-5. They are first place. They are trying to keep the Chiefs from taking that spot from them, and I have zero faith in them when it comes down to it because of Ryan Tannehill. He's proven me wrong. He's going to have to keep doing it. Pure and simple. That's all I can really say to you because I just don't think. Now, they are supposed to get Derrick Henry back. They did not activate him, so he cannot play this week. Be interested to see if they try to activate him for the first week of the playoffs. They would get the lone bye if they're able to hang on to the first seed, the number one seed through this week here against the Texans, 4-12 Texans team. So there's a good chance they can do that. That'll be a long time without him playing to just thrust him back in the middle of the postseason. So we'll see how that goes. The Chiefs. They've been there and done that, man. And again, they've been there and done that playing the way that they play. So I'm not gonna write them off until they get eliminated. I know that sounds kind of ass backwards and ridiculous when you think about it because they haven't proven that they can overcome a lot of the deficiencies that they've had when faced with a proper opponent. However, they got the guy under center who's done it, and I have more faith in that than I do in a lot of people. The Bengals. Look, man, they're gonna win a game. They're gonna win a game because they're good and they got a quarterback. We'll see how long that defense can hold up in the postseason, but they're going to win a game because they got weapons, and they got a running back, and they got Burrow. The Bills, they're going to be a quicker out than I think they should be because they just don't rely on the run as much as they should. There's a tweet that went out, again, follow me on Twitter, at JoshyBuck, about a high school or college team that ran a ISO, RPO, empty backfield, right? So they had empty backfield. They ran the RPO with no one back there for the quarterback. Just think about that. And all I tweeted out was Brian Dable doing the Mark Cuban note taking. Twitter, Josh Buck, great stuff. That you know that he wanted to take that play. They don't run the ball. So they're gonna get in and get that spot, and I think the Patriots will be their matchup in the first round of the playoffs, and then they'll probably beat them too because the Patriots can't throw. They can't throw down the field. They're good at running the ball and staying on play action on schedule, but this is not about them. This is about division leaders, and so no faith in the Titans, faith in the Chiefs, faith to an extent with the Bengals. Not much as I want to with the Bills. NFC side, the Packers. I already talked about the Packers. I told you we'll have to wait till they get to at least to the NFC Championship game before we have any kind of worries about them because I don't see they can beat everybody else that's on their way to that point. The Rams, same deal. They are a little bit less so. I trust the Rams pieces that I do more so than I do Matthew Stafford, and I'm a Matthew Stafford fan. But he has shown a propensity to turn the ball over in the most inopportune moments, and that'll put your team in the hole. And in the playoffs, you cannot afford that. So that's where I'm at with that. Buccaneers, that is a Chiefs situation. Yeah, they don't got it right now. They got Tom. They got the GOAT. And you got the GOAT, I got to give you the benefit of the doubt. That's simple as that. You've been there, done that more times than anybody, literally with Brady. Got to give you the benefit of the doubt. Cowboys, not much faith. And I'm a Dak fan. Not much faith that you're going to get the consistent Dak. Not much faith you're going to get consistent play calling. Not much faith in the Cowboys. That's just the way I lie with that. That's how I feel about division leaders in the NFL. Let's switch gears over to the NBA. And you have Kahwi Leonard possibly returning this year. The Clippers right now are fighting their way in the Western Conference, and they are currently sitting in the 8th seed, 19-20. Get Kawhi back, and they're still fighting for that play and whatever. But you get a nice upset matchup on one of those top teams if you can get Kawhi back in time and get him in a groove. We'll see. It's still a far ways out, but it is a possibility. That is a really good news because I don't think anybody thought that was even going to have a chance to happen. So good news to hear about Kawhi. We also got news and confirmation, by the way, from one Klay Thompson that he's going to be returning this Sunday when the Warriors take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Looking forward to that. Klay has not played in 2 years, fighting lower leg injuries, Achilles and ACL. Really, really brutal for one of the better, most efficient players in the NBA, who's a little bit salty because they left him off that NBA's top 75 list, and I think he's going to come out there trying to make his case. He, by the way, has extended his rehab to make sure that when he comes back on the floor, he is full throttle. So I'll be interested to see if that is the case, in fact, once he does rejoin his team. The Warriors, by the way, are currently the second best team in the West with a record of 29-9. So they've been doing all right. They've been okay. They've been figured out. They got this guy named Steph Curry. I don't know if you know who he is, but they've been maintaining. You feel me? Again, the NBA world is really kind of just happy about this because we just haven't been able to see Klay play in so long, and he's a fan favorite. There are a lot of people who feel like Klay maybe missed the boat by now, but had a chance to really take over and lead his own team. It's unfortunate that he didn't get that chance. John Moran of the Memphis Grizzlies will not play this Saturday when the Grizzlies take on who are they playing today? The Grizzlies are taking on the Clippers. Wow, that's funny. Didn't even know that was going to be the case. Perfect segue, though. That's what you call being a natural. I'm just playing. Anyway, John Morant will not play in that game against the Clippers. He has out with a thigh injury. However, he would be entering the game on quite the tear as Morant has averaged 31 points, 6 and 7 rebounds, and 5.7 assists while shooting 54% and 60% from three over the last 6 games. Unreal. Incredible for a player who was out for a long time with a hand injury. So this is only 3 games back. And then if you go back to from when he first returned, those numbers do fall a little bit, but it's still 27 points, 6.2 boards, 6.3 assists with 1 steal, shooting 52% from the floor and 48% from three. It's still incredible numbers, but the tear that he's on these last 6 is something else. And we'll just have to see what the Grizzlies do because I still feel like they're a wing player away, a dominant wing. Jeremy Grant would look really good with them. I would like to see Jeremy Grant with the Memphis Grizzlies. That'd be a really good trade for them to make. I don't know who they're going to give up, Maybe some of those, maybe Brandon Clark and somebody got to go. But I would try my damnedest to get Jeremy Grant down there with John Morant because you need somebody else that plays hard, can go get their own shot on the wing. And I think that team would have the ceiling is the roof, as Mike would say. Now, Memphis is currently the 4th seed in the West. So I'm just trying to let you know. Remember I told you before the season that was one of the teams that I thought was going to be one to watch out for. You know, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I'll point to it. I'm just going to say, here they are, and my boy Ja is doing what I thought he would do, having that Trae Young effect on his team. Because, again, if you look at it on the paper, the roster ain't all that. It really isn't. And he missed a lot of games, so I'm not going to act like it's all Ja. They're not holding their own because they definitely are battling it out. While he was out, they only lost one game. They went 1, 2, 3. They went by 5. Just not sure, we're just happy to see Ja Morant finally taking off. Boogie Cousins was cut by the Milwaukee Bucks in a move that is said to help them maintain their roster flexibility heading into the postseason, or ahead of the trade deadline rather, and then ultimately into the postseason. But per their GM, there's nothing that would keep them from working with him again in the future. He was really great for them. So there's a lot of people that are saying that, teams should avoid Boogie Cousins for their team, mostly because they feel like his attitude is still bad. But I'm here to tell you that hasn't been the case for quite some time. Boogie has been a good teammate, at least since going to join AD down in New Orleans. So I'm not sure where all that came from and all the extra. Now, there's been extracurriculars with other teams, but he's been good in his own locker room. So I don't know how you really going to hate on that and really try to say that the man wouldn't be beneficial to your team, because you know damn well he would be. Don't lie. It's all right. You don't got to lie. DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic are all getting some love in the All-Star voting, and I just want to say it's really good to see, because this is a victory lap. This is for regular season. We got to see where they go to postseason. Regular season. I told you it was going to work. I said it amid a lot of people, a lot of louder voices who were saying that it wouldn't work because DeMar DeRozan was being vastly overpaid for what he was going to bring to this team, and all he's done is earn himself a spot among the MVP voting. Horrible. They called him the worst signing, the worst move of the offseason. They had a whole panel about it. Former Bulls reporter Nick Friedel was cracking up about them, saying the Bulls are going to struggle to make the play-in at the 11th seed. This feels good. Just going to say that. Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks got some all-star love as well. Only Hawk, though, John Collins, my boy, who's actually had a really good season, did not get on the list. Their GM, Travis Schlenk, went to the radio this past week and made some pointed comments about his team's defensive, their effort, and said that moves will be made come the offseason, basically, if they don't change it around. I wrote about it for Soaring Down South again. You can find everything on clockersports.com. I wrote how their schedule's about to get really tough. They leave this 6-game road trip that they've gone 2-4, 2-3 on, with the game against the Clippers coming up here. They come off of that, have a home with Miami, and then they'll only face 3 teams that aren't at least qualified for the play-in tournament right now ahead of the trade deadline. So it's going to be hard to give this group the benefit of the doubt when they're going to be out there against some of the tougher squads. That's where their energy is going to come up big. And I also wrote for Soaring Down South that the defensive turnaround is going to have to be led by Trae Young and John Collins. Both players went to the meeting. They didn't go to the meeting. They were, during their press conferences, talked about the effort needs to be picked up and how it has to be better on both sides per Collins, or they're going to get the same results every night. To that point, Collins has to be more vocal on defense. He's stepped his game up. His on-ball defense is much better this year. He's been more active as a playmaker. He's been doing a lot of things well. Need him to talk. Need him to communicate, because despite the fact that Clint Capella is a defensive anchor in the paint, he's not a very vocal defensive anchor. And so if Collins can be out there reading out the covers to everybody, telling guys where they got to be and getting them back in the right spots, that could go a long way to guys who aren't paying attention and who may not know, because a lot of them are learning to play defense and on the fly. And again, they're a young team still. As for Trae Young, as I wrote in the article, you'll have to read that. There's something in there, though, that I think that a lot of his critics will appreciate and understand, because there's one thing that holds Trae Young back in the eyes of many. He can address that without having to adjust too much else of his game if he does it. So that's going to do it for this episode of Triple Series. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Josh Buck. Hit the Facebook page, Clocker Sports. Website, clockersports.com. Email address, clockersports@gmail.com. And, of course, you can follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at 30spod. Facebook and Twitter at 30spod. That's number 30 and pod. And, of course, read the stuff Last Word on Pro Football, Pimpin' Ain't Easy, SoaringDownSouth.com. Until the very next time, you know what it is, man. I'm gone.
You can't play like you're down, because you're not going to, get 14 points back in one drive.